Just a second, folks. We're just waiting on one of the panelists. There she is. Oh, I have it on my phone. So
oh, you do? Okay, cool.
All right. Hello, everybody. Just let me mute my phone. Okay. Hi, everyone. And thank you for coming to our first How Not to Burn Toast, a cooking class for novices and those of us who aren't quite novices. And we're going to be going over pantry items today. So with the pandemic going on, wow, why won't this turn on? With the pandemic going on, a lot of us have been having to use items from our pantry a lot more, and sometimes we don't know what to do with them or what to stock our pantry with. So we're going to go over those kind of things today, including a couple of recipes that we use quite often. If you can't hear me, because I can't tell, please, in the chat box down somewhere in a corner somewhere, tell me, or it looks like Austin is here, text Kaylee, and we'll fix the audio problem. So like I said, my name's Samantha. I'm head of information services here, and I've been cooking for a very long time because my mom was a horrible cook. So I learned to cook out of defense, and I love to cook and I love to share that with people. So that's part of the reason we're doing this.
Awesome. And I'm Kaylee. I haven't been cooking for as long, but I've been cooking for probably like 6 or 7 years now. Since I first moved out on my own, I had to kind of learn the ropes of cooking and how to do it all by myself. Also, we titled this Pandemic Pantry, but this isn't like a food hoarders or like a preparation storage show. This is more about the items that you need for an established pantry for you to be able to not have any idea what to make for dinner that night and be able to go to your pantry and be like, okay, I can put these 3 or 4 things together and have a meal out of it. So that is kind of our goal of today with this idea of pandemic pantry. So we should have like a handout linked.
So there should be 2 handouts linked to this webinar, and if not, they'll be on our website after I get this all done. And they are for, one is a pantry list, and I have a copy here. It looks like this, including glorious 90s clip art.
Yep.
So we cover all different types of things to have in your pantry. A few refrigerated items, even though that's not our focus today, we're actually talking about shelf-stable items for the most part, things that you can just shove in a pantry and have whenever you want. And then there is a recipes and websites list of a recipe I'm going to make today in the Instapot that's back there. And then we have Kaylee's recipes and and some websites that I like to go to because I cook a lot of Asian, especially Japanese food. So when we show stuff from our pantries, you're going to notice a lot of weird things that you can't read on mine.
Yeah. Yeah, so this morning, both of us kind of raided our pantries and brought in some goodies to the library today. It was kind of a very strange day at the office, which is normally just a regular office, but we have lots of pantry staples to show everybody. So I guess my first question for you, Sam, is why is it a good idea to keep a stocked pantry?
Because then you can cook stuff. So like what Kaylee said, is a lot of times you'll get home from work, or you'll, especially right now, a lot of people are having a lot of rough days, and you don't want to put together an elaborate meal, or you don't want to go grocery shopping, especially right now. So having a stocked pantry means you don't have to, because for the most part, you can put together an entire meal from just your pantry. If you have not watched Good Eats by Alton Brown, I highly recommend that. He has a bunch of pantry shows, And they will show you how to cook directly from your pantry. Yes, some of the things we will be talking about cannot be kept in a shelf-stable environment, as in shoved in a closet somewhere or in a cabinet somewhere, but most of them can.
Mhm.
And so you won't need to go shopping as often. And you can make some really, really tasty and healthy things from these items.
Yeah, and even like our list does have some things that fit in your refrigerator, but even if you're like a dorm student and you don't have a lot of refrigerator space, there's not like too many things that need to be refrigerated if you have like a well-stocked pantry.
How about you? Why do you stock your pantry?
I stock my pantry. So for those of you that aren't Austin that are viewing in today, I stock my pantry so that my fiance doesn't go hungry, because sometimes he turns into a very hungry man, and we need to make sure that we have things in our pantry so that he doesn't order Domino's every single night. But so that's a really good idea too. Like Sam brought up that sometimes when you come home from work, you may be like exhausted, and maybe your first thought is, well, maybe I should have just picked something up on the way home. But there are like a lot of simple recipes that you can make with limited pantry items that are quick to do, and they're better for you than picking up takeout if you're super exhausted or if you're bored during the pandemic or interested in cooking. So yeah.
Man, Austin got called out. So we're gonna kind of go over our handouts a little and talk about some of the things that are in our pantry that fit into the categories. So one of the first things you normally think about is, sorry, it's opposite for me. Canned foods. Yes, I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Michigan, actually. And I grew up eating this lovely thing, Spam. And you're actually seeing a lot of commercials for it lately. It's not the most healthy thing for you to eat, but it's very tasty. And it is shelf stable. This can expires in 2020. So that likely means I bought it a year or two ago. So these things stay stable for a really long time. I learned it's actually cooked. My dad used to eat it what I like to call raw, which is just sliced off and put on a sandwich. It's really gross. But you can fry it up and it's really tasty. You can make Spam musubi, which is very popular in Hawaii. I don't recommend eating a lot of it because it's high in sodium, but it is a good thing to have on hand. You never know.
And like canned goods are really good to, if you find a good recipe that is just like a one pot recipe or a one skillet recipe, they're great to dump things in and have your vegetables or protein or something that way. So if you guys have our canned goods little handout pulled up, we put a lot of different tomato products, which is definitely, I brought today my 3 main biggest components inside of my stocked pantry. So I think at home, I probably have 6 cans of corn and like 12 cans of tomatoes at all times, because we only go grocery shopping like every other week or something like that. But we also really like to use tomato paste to make like different tomato sauces and thicken up different things as well. But with canned vegetables and other canned items, they're normally picked at their peak and then canned so that they still taste really good even though they came from a can. Some people may like look down upon that, but I think it's great, and I think it's an easy way to make a meal.
I grew up in farm country, and we still used a lot of canned items. It's just, we did a lot of our own canning too. These are pickled beets. One of our shows in the future will be about canning, and it's something I like to do. In fact, I just bought a bunch of cans. These are really, really tasty, and they keep for over a year if you can them correctly. And it's pretty cheap and easy to do on your own too. So you can get stuff right now. In fact, I'm going to be making daikon radish pickles hopefully this week and canning them so I have them throughout the year in smaller cans. If you're one person like me, you cannot eat a whole can of beets. Well, you shouldn't. You will get very sick.
Or if you're a household of 2 and Sam gives you pickled radishes, you still can't eat all of them. It's still a pretty big jar.
That's why you can them, because they last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Now I have some more interesting things, and these in mine.
Are you saying that my canned corn is not interesting?
No, I'm saying I'm weird and I put weird things in my pantry. This is like a picnic staple in my family, or cookout staple, is baked beans. And I make them and I use a can like this, but I doctor it up with other pantry staples like brown sugar, onions, things like that, bacon, which isn't on our list but should be. But this is vegetarian, so you obviously could eat vegetarian. And I also highly recommend, if someone will eat fish in your house, having some kind of fish in your pantry, whether it be tuna fish or canned salmon, because they are actually really good for you. Canned salmon is high in omega-3 fatty acids or something like this. This is from Trader Joe's. I make salmon patties with them. My grandmother used to just eat it out of a can. I don't recommend that. It's kind of gross, but it makes an easy lunch. It makes an easy sandwich filling. You can take it with you. We do recommend having a can opener because not all of our cans have tabbies on them.
None of mine do.
But other than that, canned goods are very useful. Just remember, a lot of them are packed with a lot of salt in them. So I always recommend buying the no salt or low salt ones. If you're using a lot of canned beans, rinse them off. It will help get rid of that metal taste. You could also can your own beans. It's a little more complicated, so I just recommend going and buying the beans in that case. But cans come in really handy, and you shouldn't really turn your nose up at them because there are some really tasty things that are in cans.
Especially too, like on the second handout, I added our chili recipe to the mix, and that is just like ground turkey, and that is one of the fresh ingredients, but then the rest of it is all just cans and then simmered together for like 20 minutes, and then you have a really quick weeknight chili. There was another thing I wanted to say too. If you're not that big a fan of fish, they also make canned chicken as well, that you can make like chicken salad sandwiches with, or we like to make chicken and cheese quesadillas all the time with that kind of canned chicken, because it actually works really well.
Yeah, and when I make chicken salad sandwiches, I put curry in them, and it will help cover the canned taste of the chicken that you sometimes get. If you've ever watched Chopped, you've probably seen a whole chicken in a can.
Oh,
I
don't do that.
Yeah,
No.
I don't recommend those. But the little cans of chicken, they work just as well for a fast meal if you're not into fish things. So next on our list is dry goods. And these are the other thing that people think more often with this. And let me go through my weird stuff just a second. Oh, there's my So we're pulling out all of our weird dry goods that happen to be in here. Like I said, my pantry is a little weird because
Well, this is interesting.
right? You can't see all of it, but I'll hold them up in a second. My pantry is weird. I love Japanese food. So I cook Japanese food. Probably not as authentic as if you're in Japan, but I do buy a lot of the ingredients that I can't read. Hopefully someday soon. But one of the things I like to keep in my pantry is rice. This is Japanese short grain rice, probably grown in California, actually. And short grain rice is what they use to make sushi. So it's sticky. So not all Americans really like that kind of thing. So if you're looking for a regular rice to keep in your pantry, just an all-purpose rice, a long grain rice is just fine. Jasmine rice is also really popular. It has a slightly floral taste to it. So if you're like me and you don't like tasting grandma's, perfume or a flower garden, it's not a big thing, but just regular, cheap, long grain rice is just fine. That's what you get in Chinese restaurants. This is good if you like to eat with chopsticks like I do, because it's really hard to pick up grains of rice if they're not stuck together.
Oh, yeah. And I like that this is a resealable bag too. Right. We get the 20-pound bag of rice from Costco and it lasts probably for like 6 months. But if you eat rice a lot, that's a really good economical way because I think it's like $8 or something like that.
Yeah, this is a lot. This is more expensive than $8,
but it is resealable.
It's resealable and it's really good rice. I put a lot of my. I just happen to not have it in this. I have a lot of those like pop top containers, and I put a lot of my pantry dry goods in that. Because I can stack things in my pantry then, because I obviously can't stack this. But I just happened to buy one for this and I haven't put it in there yet. So rice, good staple.
All right. Another regular staple to have in your pantry is pasta. This is some fancy organic pasta that we got from Costco in like a 6-pack. But any kind of pasta works because you can like throw together a veggie stir fry and throw pasta in it and then that can be your dinner. Or, you know, like regular like spaghetti and meatballs or like a meat sauce at home or something like that is always really super yummy to have. Or you can make your own homemade mac and cheese, which is amazing. We did that last week for the very first time and it was amazing. I grew up eating that. It was so good. But so pasta is always a really good one. Everyone grows up with this probably in their pantries at home. So it's a good American staple.
It is. And then there are other types of pasta. These are 2 Japanese types. One is Udon Noodles. I have both the dry and the frozen kind at my house. It's really good substitute for just regular pasta. They're made the similar ways. It's a little complicated. Then there are soba noodles, which are buckwheat noodles. So they have a bit of a nuttiness to them. Super tasty. They're about the size of angel hair pasta, so you could substitute it for angel hair pasta pretty easily. But I highly recommend just trying some of these more unique things you're going to see come out of my pantry because they're really good. We do have a Japanese restaurant in Boulder City. They are open for takeout right now. I don't know about that. So if you want to try stuff without buying it, you could always try one of their things. I've eaten there a couple times. It's pretty good. I've had their sushi many times. It's good. So it's an opportunity right now to open your pantry up to the world too. So I highly recommend that.
Mm-hmm. There was another strange pantry item that we talked about that not a lot of people cook with. I think that as we kind of read the room on what people normally keep in their pantries, this wasn't listed as often, but both of us have them frequently. As opposed to maybe like a canned bean, this is also a really good, not maybe a really good, but it is a source of protein. But so we wanted to talk about lentils. Can you guys see it? Oh my gosh. I feel like a beauty. But so we have lentils and they're really good either just to boil up on their own and add to a dish to add a whole bunch of fiber to your diet. But they can be paired with vegetables. I have a recipe that I added for a simple lentil curry with stir-fried vegetables. It's really super good. So I have like the standard lentil, which is like green lentils here. And those have lots of fiber in them and they're kind of, they have a lot more body to them. But then I also brought, as an example, some red lentils. And these ones come out a little bit more mushy. Almost like a split pea. So these are really good for, these are really good for soups. And you can see that this is only half a package because Austin made red lentil soup.
Nice.
And then just because I found this other variation of lentils, this is another Costco find. It's the Madras organic lentils, Indian Madras lentils, but this is kind of like a little curry pouch that you can take for lunch and pour over rice, which is also like another yummy option if you want a really super quick meal. But yeah. That was our little lentil corner.
Yeah, and I highly recommend the green brown lentils if you just gonna keep one in your pantry, because I like to cook curries and stuff like that, and in fact that's what I'll be cooking in a few minutes when I step up to go do that. But red lentils break down like crazy, and one of the recipes I have is a crock pot recipe, and they call for red lentils, and I don't know why, because it makes mush. And it tastes fine, but it's mush. The green lentils hold up a lot better in those things. So you have a little bit of texture instead of baby food.
Yeah.
So that's the one I highly recommend.
Mhm.
And I got a couple more weird things. If you're Southern, you know what these are. These are grits, and they're actually they're orange corn. So some people would argue they're not grits because grits are white. But grits and polenta, which is Italian, I almost said French, Italian, they're similar. It normally is a grind thing. This is a medium grind because I like to use it for everything. So I make them you can put pasta sauces on them, you can put stews on them. You can just eat it. I have done that before. You put a lot of cheese and cream and butter in it, really tasty. You can also make polenta cakes. You can make fried polenta. There's a lot of things you can do with it. This is basically just cornmeal. And it's super handy to have. I've used it when I ran out of actual cornmeal in like cornbread recipes and things like that. They're a little bit different in grind, so they were a little gritty. But if you get fine cornmeal or you get regular cornmeal, you can also make grits. So super handy to have in there as a pantry staple.
Mhm.
And here comes some weird stuff. So I'm not going to open this because it will make the entire library smell like fish. But this is called Katsugushi. It's dried bonito flakes. If you've ever had miso soup is made with a broth called dashi, and it is made with these dried fish flakes. And they do smell a little different for us Americans who are probably used to smelling fish stuff a lot, but they're super tasty to have. Japanese people put them on a lot of things. So if you've ate Japanese food, you might have seen them. They like look a little wavy on there, but I keep these, and I just bought some, and so I don't have it here. Kombu in my pantry, so I can make dashi and miso soup whenever I want, and it makes it easy. And then I have dried mushrooms. These are shiitake mushrooms. If you need to make a broth for a vegetarian, these bring a lot of umami, earthy flavors to things. I don't eat dried mushrooms because they get a little slimy after you rehydrate them. But you make really good powders. You can add into breadings. You can add them into sauce. You'll find in the grocery store porcini mushrooms, cremini, all different types. These just happen to be shiitake, which are super meaty tasting. So this is another weird thing from Sam's Pantry.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go while Kaylee's talking about pantry vegetables, I'm gonna go start my curry.
Awesome too. And I did want to note, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, for everyone watching live, you can comment questions in the chat if you would like, and we'll answer them at the end of the video. And also you can see Sam doing her Instapot magic in the background. But so for our next category, if you're following along on our handout at home, we talked about different pantry vegetables, and we didn't want to make this too extensive because that kind of starts to fall into the idea of having fresh things that might need to be kept in the fridge. But we have on here onions, all of the different kinds and flavors. We have yellow, red, and white. And a yellow onion added to almost any kind of stir fry, any kind of sauce, can help elevate the flavor that you're starting. So it's about building the different flavors that
there are onions in there.
There's onions. Amazing. But so onions can help start building the flavor of something that you're cooking. It's kind of a part of, what is it called? The Mirepoix?
Mirepoix, yeah.
Mirepoix,
which is onions, celery, and
carrot. And I think in Mexico it changes to onions, celery, and like bell peppers or tomatoes. Sofrito, there we go.
I watch a lot of food TV if you can't tell.
Yeah, exactly. But so we added onions. Potatoes. Sam just handed me some little tiny baby potatoes. But so we, as I throw them everywhere. But so we added potatoes onto the list too, because you can add them to your dinners, or also if you're making a little Sunday breakfast, you can dice up some potatoes and fry them along your eggs, and that's a really good way to make a little bit more of a fancy Sunday breakfast if you're feeling like you want to romance your partner or something. um, Cook them something nice. We also added garlic cloves to this list to kind of, it has the same idea behind it as the onion. So if you add garlic to different recipes, it can help enhance the flavors. And we liked the idea of adding fresh garlic cloves instead of, here's some nice garlic. Oh,
And ginger.
And ginger. Ooh. So we liked, it smells really good. Even though it's just chopped garlic and ginger, it's pretty good. But so we decided to add real garlic to this list instead of maybe like a jarred pre-minced garlic, because one, when you chop up fresh garlic, it just kind of makes your kitchen smell nice. But also, lost my train of thought. But also, sometimes the garlic that's kept in the fridge, it can either, if you don't screw on the lid tight enough, it can make your fridge smell, and then that's not as nice of a smell. But it can also age a little bit too long. I know my mom used to keep jars of garlic, and sometimes it would still taste good in recipes, but it wouldn't taste as good as fresh garlic.
I'm using canned garlic.
Damn! And then we also added tomatoes to this list. Fresh tomatoes maybe aren't the biggest staple, but you can see that we added a whole bunch of different kinds of canned tomatoes onto the canned goods list. So tomatoes in any form are always a really great option to have inside of your pantry. So let's check on Sam. How's everything going over there?
So if you've never used an Instapot, it's a quick way to make a meal, especially if you're doing something that might take a long time. This is a Japanese curry. It can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour on the stove, depending on what type of meat you're using and how big your vegetables are. It takes 15 minutes in my Instapot. Very handy. I'm going to be making a Japanese curry, and we're going to be moving on to oils, vinegars, and sauces. So it's a good time to talk about this. So I love Japanese curry. It's something I found out about a couple of years ago. And it's made with what's called curry root. And I can't open this right now. I'll open it. It's got tape on it a second. I'm just gonna open it. So I bought a 5-pack on Amazon of the big ones because they're hard to find and they're kind of expensive in the grocery store. You can get it at Albertsons.
You can get it at Walmart as well, yeah. But there is only Albertsons in Boulder City.
Yeah. So this is golden curry. It comes in a pack like this. It has all the spices and all of the seasonings. Well, the spices are seasonings. All of the thickeners that you need to make a curry, a Japanese curry. It looks like this. Not very appetizing, super tasty, let me tell you. So my recipe is a modified recipe from a website called Just One Cookbook. There are recipes on the back of these. I'm making a beef curry that has onions and carrots and potatoes, and it kind of sounds like beef stew, doesn't it? This type of Japanese food came around during right after World War II. So it is highly influenced by the United States, and it is super, super tasty. So it will be done by the time we're done with this. So I'm gonna let Kaylee talk more about different sauces, I guess.
Different sauces.
And I'm gonna pull out some. I'm gonna need that later. Things Sam pulls out of her pantry.
Ooh. Wow, so many fancy things.
So remember when I talked about making dashi? You can buy granules to make it. I keep some in mine, so in case I don't have any frozen dashi, I can easily make some.
Mm-hmm. So moving on through our handout, the next section we wanted to talk about is oils, vinegars, and sauces. And these are kind of the different things that can help you get a meal started, like vegetable and canola oil, extra virgin olive oil, and sesame oil. I think this is a different one.
I need light sesame oil.
What oil is this?
That is not oil.
Oh, okay, never mind. This is not oil.
I didn't bring any oil with me today, so I'll talk about these because, again, I said there's some weird things in my pantry. This is probably familiar to everyone. Soy sauce. This is just a Japanese version. Very tasty. Kikkoman makes good soy sauce. Yeah. This is not Kikkoman. I used up all of mine. I also keep rice wine vinegar in my pantry. This is a small bottle. I normally have a huge bottle. It is good to replace like any kind of like white wine vinegar in there. If you can, buy it unseasoned so that you can add your own seasoning. It's nice and sweet and tart. I use it a lot in pickling, to be real honest. In fact, and salad dressing. Really good in salad dressing. This giant thing is Mirin. Aji Mirin, actually. So Mirin is a Japanese cooking wine. This has a very, I don't know if this actually has, yeah, this has a very low alcohol content, so it's not technically fully Mirin, but it's sweet. So it's almost like a sweet wine. It's used a lot in Japanese cooking, so I keep a gallon-sized bottle at my house. I use it in everything when I need to sweeten something or it calls for a sweeter wine. And then I have oyster sauce, which is used a lot in Asian cooking. It is made with oysters, so it can taste a little fishy. For the most part, it's sweet.
Also not vegetarian.
Not vegetarian. Not at all. But you can talk about this.
All right. So some other different elements in this category of oils, vinegars, and sauces can be nonstick spray is always a really great thing to have in your kitchen, especially if you try to do any baking, or even if you're making like waffles and pancakes. It's always good to have some nonstick spray. Sam mentioned soy sauce, but you can also have Worcestershire sauce or Worcestershire sauce in your pantry. And this can help either flavor sauces, or sometimes I'll use it in a meatball recipe. It kind of helps add and develop flavor for different meats.
It's also not vegetarian. Worcestershire sauce is made with fish, so it's actually a fish sauce. Things you learn.
All right, good to know. We also put on here Sriracha, which is really good. I know that we have an Instant Pot recipe at home for a Korean for a Korean style chicken that calls for Sriracha in it. And sometimes if you put a lot of Sriracha, you do get that really spicy flavor, but it has a really good, a good flavor to it that's really good for sauces, and it adds just a little bit of heat. And then on here we also have honey, mustard, are nice golden curry blocks, because you can make a quick curry any time of the week with those. But some other things that you could add to this are like balsamic vinegar, and also with things from this list, you can start making your own dressings at home. So I know that we make one that has olive oil, balsamic vinegar, honey, and mustard in it, and it's a really good balsamic dressing, and it's super easy to make. So now that Sam has stolen the curry powder, we're going to move on to herbs and spices. So Sam brought out her curry powder to make this recipe today, for her in the background, as she is plating over her Instant Pot. But so spices are a really good thing to have, and it may get kind of daunting if you're building your pantry for the first time because spices could be expensive. But if you go to some place like Walmart, or Albertsons might have discounted spices, I'm not sure.
You can buy them online too.
You can buy spices online as well. But you can kind of start to get your spice pantry into line. So good ones to have are salt and pepper always. That's like the basics. But then you can expand this by adding dried basil, oregano, thyme, kind of those different leafy herbs. But also some other good things to have in your pantry are cumin and crushed red pepper or cayenne pepper. So crushed red pepper is like what you would put on your pizza, the little red flakes that you get in tiny packets. And then cayenne pepper is a finer kind of more powder-like consistency, like curry powder, that you can add a little bit of spice to any dish that you are making, and you don't really see those red pepper chunk flakes. Cumin is really good for savory dishes. I add it by like multiple tablespoonfuls into my chili because it helps develop kind of like that meaty flavor. Even if you're just making a bean chili, it can develop a meaty flavor for you without having meat. Some other ideas are smoked paprika, cinnamon, chili powder, and garlic powder. So all of those things, just that list of maybe like 12, 15 different spices can help you start developing things. You don't need fancy stuff like saffron leaves or like whole vanilla beans or anything like that.
I mean, you can make your own vanilla extract. Vanilla beans are very expensive right now.
Yeah.
Though I used to make mine, but it's actually not as economical to do it anymore. I keep a lot of exotic spices in mine because I cook with some weird stuff. But one of my favorite spice blends is called Chinese Five Spice,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a lot of the spices that you associate with like Christmas in it,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a little bit more of a I think it has anise in it too, so it has a little bit of a licorice kick to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great on so many different things. I love putting it on sweet potatoes.
Oh,
And then roasting them. So another pantry staple.
yeah,
Sweet potatoes.
that's a good idea.
You can also use curry for that same thing. It's kind of that same idea.
Oh, cool. I am also looking down at this list too, and other than cinnamon, most all of these spices are just for savory cooking, but we are, as a sneak peek in November, we're gonna have a Thanksgiving, maybe like a holiday special, so we'll maybe talk about more sweet spices later.
Then,
Yeah.
and with baking items, this is yeast. This is SAP instant yeast. Yeast has been very hard to come by lately, so a lot of people have been doing sourdough. I keep yeast in my freezer. I put it in a freezer bag. This is brand new, so that's why it's not in a freezer bag, and it lasts for a really long time. And I use it quite often to make my own breads and rolls and things like that, which we will talk about in a Thanksgiving show.
Mm-hmm. You don't need yeast for sourdough bread?
No.
I've never made sourdough bread.
Sourdough bread, you are making your own yeast. You have to make a starter, a sourdough starter. I'm not an expert on those because I kill them.
Okay.
I kill the yeast. But
another option for non-yeast pandemic cooking is Irish soda bread. We've been making that a lot at home, and it is delicious. But don't use the vanilla almond milk because then it makes your bread taste wrong. So, let's see. So moving on, I wanted to give a brief shout out to our refrigerated items that are good to keep in your pantry or in your stocked kitchen.
I just put a bunch of them in our curry, in fact.
So it's good to have milk, eggs, and butter. Those are kind of a good staple.
Right.
You can do dairy or non-dairy milk. I mostly keep almond milk at home, but I make sure that it is non-sweetened and non-vanilla, so that I can use it making my Irish soda bread or something like that, so that you can add it to things without it like affecting the flavor. But we have on here plain yogurt, which you can use to make sauces. It is a really good, healthier alternative to sour cream if you're maybe making like a little crema for your tacos or something like that. We also have some other staples like mayonnaise and mustard, grated Parmesan cheese, regular cheese, tortillas, and then any kind of vegetables of your choice that you would eat, because sometimes I'll buy like a new vegetable from the store and it'll stay in my fridge for 3 weeks and then we just throw it away. So if you're buying vegetables, make sure to stock your fridge, make sure they're ones that you'll actually eat so that they don't go bad.
And a lot of these, if they're starting to get old, you can like blanch them and freeze them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm notorious, I live by myself, so it's more economical normally to buy a larger pack of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I freeze a lot of stuff. In fact, our next show for next month will be called Just Freeze It. And I'll be talking all about, how to freeze items and foods like this Japanese curry that is hopefully Kurt's gonna start doing its thing soon, so that you have things that you can just grab right out of your freezer to make meals or eat, because I eat a lot of freezer food that I've made, because that means I can control the seasonings, how it tastes, what goes in it. I have food allergies, so I'm allergic to peppers, which sounds really weird, but a lot of frozen foods for some reason, because they're very flavorful,
Mm-hmm.
have peppers in them. So I can't eat a lot of frozen foods without getting sick, especially Mexican food. So I make my own and I stick them in the freezer. And when I need something or I'm exhausted, I just pull one out, stick it in the microwave, and I have a meal ready to go, including rice and things like that. There's so many things that you don't even realize that you can actually freeze. So we're going to talk about that kind of stuff next month. And the next item was frozen things. So there's lots of frozen things you can buy. I do recommend shelled edamame. They are so good. I get them at Trader Joe's. I throw them in fried rice. They're really good in fried rice. I sometimes just eat them. And if you don't know what edamame are, they're soybeans. And I grew up in an area that grew a lot of soybeans. So I never ate them until I got older. But they're really tasty. You can also buy them in shell. But if you're going to cook with them, spend a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Believe me.
The in-shell ones are good for like a little snack if you have a microwave at home. I haven't had the pleasure to have edamame snacks because we don't have a microwave at home. But you like pop them in the microwave for like 60 seconds and then they're just a really fun little snack. Kids like them too.
Cool. Yeah, and they're actually pretty healthy for you. There's always that whole don't eat soy thing.
Yeah, the soy debate.
I mean, countries like Japan and China have extremely high life expectancy rates and low obesity rates. And they eat soy all the time. I mean, all the time. So, I mean, it's what you like and what you're comfortable with doing, but it is a healthy alternative to potato chips.
Yeah.
Which are a pantry staple at my house. So, does anyone have any questions as of right now? Our recipes are, well, my recipe is cooking in the back. I can smell it. It smells good. This is what I'm going to be eating at home tonight. So I guess I can explain a little bit more about curry rice, which is what I'm technically making. So it's a Japanese dish that uses this, and it borrows heavily from Indian food. This is not Indian. Curry powder is a British invention that was made to kind of mimic the flavors of India when they came back, when soldiers would come back from India. They wanted those exotic spice flavors. A lot of those flavors are in here. I boost it with this so that it has a super curry flavor because I really like it. But it is a beef stew. So it's American, but not. They eat it on rice in Japan a lot. You can also eat it on Udon Noodles, which I have. I brought from my pantry. But it's really tasty, and it's a good way to kind of get into other cultures' food because it's familiar, yet it's not. So I make it for people. In fact, I make a vegetarian version for a friend. It's super easy to make vegetarian. It's super easy to freeze. That's why I use these potatoes. These are golden potatoes. They hold their shape better, and I use little whole ones so that I do not have to actually like cut them up. I just drop them in my Instapot. Literally, I dumped everything in my Instapot and turned the thing on. So it's a really easy meal to make. And you can put different types of vegetables in it. In there is a vegetable that most people around here don't apparently know, called rutabaga.
Oh, rutabaga. Yeah, I don't really cook with that.
I do because I grew up in the Midwest, and we like our root vegetables a lot. So I throw whatever I tend to have in my pantry in there. So sometimes there'll be sweet potatoes in there, sometimes there'll be turnips, sometimes there'll be radish in them, mostly daikon radish, which is actually me saying radish. So it's very versatile. You can use chicken, you can use beef. I use pork belly primarily, which is bacon before it's bacon. So it's really fatty. You'll want to use a fattier cut of meat, or one that can be stewed for a long time. So like beef chuck, like boneless, skinless chicken thighs, not those breasts, thighs. And then pork that you would normally use, like pork shoulder or pork belly, or something that you would normally cook in a crock pot. That's basically what I'm doing, is quick crock pot cooking. So,
Okay. So this just in, we have some breaking news. Austin texted us because I just went and got my phone, and he said that watchers can't use the chat box.
they can't use the
They
chat
can't
box?
use the chat box.
Why not?
Uh-oh.
It's supposed to let you use the chat box, but they can hear us.
I think they can hear us. He
Okay.
said.
So, because this is our first time using GoToWebinar, so we'll work out the kinks and stuff like that. You can send any questions in via our questions, which is questions@bclibrary.org. You can contact us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and ask any questions. I'm fairly knowledgeable in food because I watch a lot of food TV and I like to cook. And if not, we're both librarians, so we're
we
good
can
at
do some research.
we're
for
good at
ya.
research, and we can do some research for us. We do have a lot of cookbooks here that I highly recommend. I purchase our books, so I know there are a lot of cookbooks. I buy a lot of cookbooks, and there are a lot of really good ones in here you can get out from the library. You can also use one of our online sources like Foodblah or Overdrive and check out some cookbooks. Lots of pantry staple ones, including ones about making your own pantry essentials. And so you can make your own ketchup if you really, really want to. I just buy Heinz, to be real honest. So,
Oh yeah, us too.
yeah. So sorry about the chat box not working. That's weird. I don't quite know what setting I missed for that one. There's a bunch of, I'm looking at the side screen and there's a bunch of settings, and I'm like, I have no idea exactly what I missed.
Yeah, this is kind of our first time.
We'll take a look at that and figure it out for you. Kaylee also she put in more recipes than I did, because we granny cook is what I like to call it. So I either use recipes I find online most of the time or in a cookbook, and then I modify them, and or I measure by measurements are not as important to me unless I'm baking. Like this called for a teaspoon of curry or tablespoon of curry powder, and I just dumped curry powder in there. It's not the best way to measure for foods, but I don't have a lot of recipes to share because I don't cook and or write down recipes. I've always been mad at my grandmother for not doing her apple pie recipe, and I do the same thing. So our recipes may look a little weird, but they're open for experimentation. I saw almost an inspiration. That too.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to try some of our recipes. Hers sound really good, so I highly recommend.
Yeah, and for like the recipes that I added to the second handout on here, they're just ones that we make probably like 4 or 5 times a month, so maybe once a week. And they were just simple ones that like either I had a recipe originally or came up with it on my own, and over the course I either lost the recipe or I just don't use the recipe anymore. So there is stuff like wide ranges of tablespoons of cooking oil or wide ranges of seasonings or something like that. And normally I'll just like dump some in my hand to make sure I'm not putting too much in the pot, and then I'll just like tip it over and say that that's pretty good, and so on and so forth. So once you start cooking and once you know like what a tablespoon of curry powder looks like, you'll be able to kind of just like zhuzh up your pot in a way until it tastes good.
But a handful.
Yeah. Well, like a palmful, like if you just like.
Well, I have big hands, but yeah. But yeah, if you're following a recipe, you'll find, especially savory recipes, sweet dessert recipes are a little bit more fiddly.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find how you like to substitute things. Like the Japanese curry I'm making, when you search online, there are like a bajillion different ways of making it. People put things like honey and chocolate in them. Asian pear, which is like apple. They put ketchup in it. I don't do that. I put in soy sauce, which is another addition that you make. But one thing I will tell people is as you're cooking, taste. Because you'll be able to find out if your seasonings are too salty or soft before you add more salt.
Yeah.
And do what she does and pour it into your hand and then pour it in.
Because you never know, like you may be pouring
Right.
something and then the little plastic cap comes off and then the whole like curry jar falls into your pot.
Or you pour it in like all of the red pepper flakes.
Yeah,
you know,
that too.
So that's another thing that is probably pretty good to do. And for some reason, my Instapot still hasn't come up to things. So we'll share pictures on our Facebook of the Japanese curry because we both have to go back on the desk. Or I have to go back on the desk. But we will be doing these once a month. We might stick with the webinar format. We may go to just a YouTube video depending on how things go, because if we just go to a YouTube video, we might be able to do more than one a month.
Yeah, and we might be able to respond to questions a little bit better. So we will be posting this. It's recorded, right?
It should be recorded.
So hopefully we're recording. But we will be posting this on our Boulder City Library YouTube page. So if you did post some questions, please follow up with us. Either message us on Facebook or email us at the questions@bclibrary.org email. And we can answer those questions. We're so sorry that it didn't work today.
I hear the Instapot starting. They do take a little while to come up to pressure. So this isn't the only food thing we're doing. We're doing, what did we call it?
It's the Cook the Book Club.
There we go.
So this is a book club for people who love cookbooks, or if you're starting to get into cooking, which might be our audience for this episode of this program. But for August, we're going to be looking into bakeless sweets. And this recipe, I actually just did my pudding this morning.
Yay!
Dad's been asking me if I'm
redoing mine because my video did not.
But so the purpose of this cookbook club or this book club is to try recipes from one cookbook and then share ideas with everybody to see how those recipes turned out, if they didn't turn out how you thought they would, and if you had to redo them. Or if you're very surprised by the magic of stirring milk for 30 minutes and then it turning into pudding automatically, which was crazy. But so that's this. So keep your eye on our Facebook page for information about our Cook the Book Club. We'll make a Facebook group for it too, so we can.
There is a Facebook group. Woohoo! So you can join our Facebook group. It's through our BC Library web page, or BC Library Facebook page. And what we want you guys to do is post videos, whatever, pictures of what you made, things like that, so that we can add them together and put them into a video or something, so that we can share them during it will be a go-to meeting. That means you'll be able to talk and share, like Kaylee said, what went right, what went wrong, was it tasty, was it not. This is available on Hoopla, and that means everyone can check it out at the same time, because we only have one. Yeah, we just have this one copy, but I'm done with it now, so if you really want the physical copy, you can get it. Yeah, and we'll be honest, we're not professionals at this, so don't feel bad if things don't turn out, or you think your video sucks, because I just watched the video I did. She was filming me in the DVD aisle in the library. She was like, "Will you try this for me?" As I was trying to pull books. So we don't judge. No. And sometimes recipes don't turn out the way that you think they should. Mine didn't. So I'm actually redoing it. Hopefully this weekend, and doing a video so I can kind of show you guys what we're talking about. She made, it started pressure cooking. She made pudding. I am trying to go to the 50s. And I will be making a peach and raspberry and technically cranberry gelatin mold. So be prepared, more or less. So we'd love for people to join in on this. Check the books out. Try recipes. Try new things. For us right now, bakeless sweets is kind of the thing you want to do because hot.
Last weekend, my car registered at 120 degrees.
Right.
We live in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
so.
So check this book out on Hoopla. If you happen to not have a library card, we are open for limited services, so we can get you a library card. If you are if you live in Las Vegas, Henderson or North Las Vegas, please go to them and get a library card so that you can access their online resources because they are tied to library districts. And most of us have similar items. You can also check this book out once she returns it via curbside service. You can either go online and request it, or you can give us a call and we'll put together some for you.
Most of the time it's me and Sam answering the phone, so.
So in fact, I'll be answering the phone in a few minutes. And we'd love for you to join in with us because I find food is a way to not just comfort people during this time because it's kind of hard, but it's also a way to connect with people. Food is one of the few things that it doesn't matter what language you speak, it speaks your language. And it's a good way to share, your culture, whether it's a type of American culture like my Midwestern culture, which is very different from Western culture. More potatoes where I grew up. So we're gonna take ideas on what types of shows you would like to see. So please contact us somehow.
Yeah.
We're available multiple ways. And say, hey, I'd like to learn how to do this. In fact, we had a staff member just come to us and go, hey, do either of you know how to barbecue? and I had to have I watch too much food TV. What do you exactly mean by barbecue question? Because I have a smoker at home. And she was talking about grilling primarily.
Yeah.
So that's an idea for us. Unfortunately, we can't have a grill at the library.
We could do it in my backyard. We can see if that works.
So we may do that in the future. I'm gonna wait till don't melt when I go outside.
Yeah, definitely.
But we will be doing Just Freeze It, so freezer foods and meals next week.
Next
month. Holy crap. And then hopefully having some more month by month. And if we choose to do YouTube videos, we may do more because they're a little bit easier for us to fit into our schedules.
Yeah.
But like I said, we want you to be a part of it. So talk to us.
Yeah. So let us know.
So we're gonna sign off because I have to go back to work, other work. And we hope you enjoyed today and learned something new. If not, you at least know I have a weird pantry.
Amazing.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Right, bye, everybody. I'll just keep waving.
I don't know how to end this.
Wow. Amazing.